There are cars that scream for attention, and then there are cars that whisper their story, only to those who truly care. The Lamborghini Urraco P300 is one of those machines. Overshadowed by legends like the Miura and the Countach, this mid-engine V8 coupe became one of Lamborghini's hidden gems. And today, we're diving deep into the rise, the fall, and the rediscovery of this forgotten classic car. When we talk about Lamborghini in the early 1970s, most people instantly think of the Miura, the car that practically invented the modern supercar. But Lamborghini wasn't satisfied with building just one icon for the elite few. Ferruccio Lamborghini had a bigger vision. He wanted to broaden the brand, to create something that could compete not only with Ferrari's halo cars, but also with their smaller, more accessible models. That vision became the Lamborghini Urraco. The name itself, Urraco, comes from a line of Spanish fighting bulls, keeping in line with the brand's tradition. But the mission of the car was different. Lamborghini wanted to build a mid-engine V8 coupe that was sporty, stylish, and exotic, yet still somewhat practical. This was a car designed for people who dreamed of a Lamborghini but couldn't stretch to the Miura or later the Countach. It was meant to be a gateway Lamborghini, an exotic with a broader audience. The competition was fierce. Ferrari had the Dino 246 GT, Maserati had the Merak, and Porsche was dominating the sports car world with the 911. Lamborghini's response had to be something that would stand out in that crowded segment. So Ferruccio turned to Bertone, and more specifically Marcello Gandini, the man who had already penned the Miura and would later give us the Countach. Gandini was a master of the wedge design language, and with the Urraco, he sculpted a sleek, futuristic 2+2 coupe. The lines of the Urraco P300 were sharp, low, and aggressive. At just over 1.1 meters tall, the car looked like it was slicing through the air even when standing still. The louvered engine cover, the hidden headlamps, and the taut, compact proportions made it instantly recognizable as a Lamborghini. Yet, it had something most of its stablemates didn't: a pair of rear seats. Yes, the Urraco was a 2+2, in reality more of a +2 for kids or luggage, but it gave Lamborghini a new angle. It wasn't just a weekend toy, it could claim a degree of practicality. But turning this vision into reality was anything but smooth. Lamborghini announced the prototype at the Turin Motor Show in 1970, and the reception was electric. Journalists were impressed, enthusiasts were excited, and it seemed like Lamborghini had another hit on their hands. The problem was, production didn't start until almost 2 years later. By the time the first Urracos rolled out in 1972, the world was facing an oil crisis, rising fuel prices, and economic uncertainty. The timing could not have been worse for a brand new exotic. On top of that, building an all-new V8 engine was no small feat. Until then, Lamborghini was known for their big V12s, but the Urraco demanded a lighter, smaller, more efficient power plant. Engineers developed a 90-degree V8 that could be built in multiple displacements: 2.0 liters for the Italian market, 2.5 liters for international buyers, and eventually the 3.0-liter version in the P300. It was advanced for its day, with aluminum construction, double overhead cams, and carburetors to feed it. But the complexity of developing this new powertrain slowed things down and added costs. Ferruccio Lamborghini's ambition was to sell thousands of Urracos and make it the bread and butter of the company. The goal was to secure steady income, something desperately needed at a time when Lamborghini's finances were under strain. But reality fell short. Lamborghini's small scale of production, the delays, and the global economic downturn meant they could never reach those numbers. Instead of stabilizing the company, the Urraco became more of a boutique curiosity. And yet, the intention behind the project is what makes it so fascinating. The Urraco wasn't meant to be the fastest Lamborghini ever built. It wasn't meant to break records like the Miura or shock the world like the Countach. It was meant to give Lamborghini a fighting chance in a more competitive segment, to take on Ferrari's Dino and Maserati's Merak head-to-head. It was meant to be the Lamborghini for the passionate driver who wanted Italian style, mid-engine handling, and exotic flair, but without the stratospheric price tag of the brand's flagship models. That's the story of the Urraco's vision, born out of ambition, challenged by circumstance, and caught in the crossfire of economic crisis. A bold attempt to expand Lamborghini's world, and while it may not have achieved its original commercial dream, it gave us one of the most unique and overlooked cars in the brand's history, the Lamborghini Urraco P300. At the core of every great Lamborghini lies its engine, and the Urraco P300 was no exception. But unlike the 12-cylinder monsters that made the Miura and Countach legends, the Urraco was powered by something new for the company, a V8. This wasn't a downsized version of the V12, it was an engine developed specifically for the Urraco, engineered to combine exotic performance with a more approachable character. The P300's heart was a 3.0-liter, 90-degree V8, crafted entirely in aluminum to save weight and keep the car nimble. With double overhead cams and fed by 4 Weber carburetors, it delivered around 260 horsepower at 7,500 RPM. That's a figure that might sound modest today, but in the mid-70s, it was a serious punch for a car of this size and weight. What made it special wasn't just the numbers, it was the way it delivered that power. This wasn't a lazy, low-revving engine. It was a free-revving, high-strung piece of engineering that came alive as the tack needle soared. The sound of that V8 screaming just behind your ears turned every drive into a theater of speed. Performance figures backed up the excitement. 0 to 60 miles per hour came in about 5.6 seconds, a time that put it squarely against Ferrari's Dino and faster than many 911s of the era. Top speed? Around 260 kilometers per hour or 161 miles per hour. For the mid-1970s, those numbers placed the Urraco P300 firmly in the league of true exotic sports cars, despite being marketed as Lamborghini's entry-level offering. But what really made the Urraco stand apart wasn't just the engine, it was the way the entire package came together. The car's chassis was a steel monocoque, lightweight yet strong, with a mid-engine layout that gave it ideal weight distribution, about 42% on the front axle and 58% over the rear. That balance translated directly into handling that was sharp, agile, and confidence-inspiring.
Suspension was independent on all 4 corners, quite advanced for the time, with McPherson struts, coil springs, and anti-roll bars. Combined with ventilated disc brakes on all 4 wheels, the Urraco offered precision that many competitors lacked. This wasn't just a straight-line missile, it was a driver's car, designed to carve corners and respond to every input with immediacy. The gearbox was a 5-speed manual with a classic gated shifter that gave each gear change a mechanical, satisfying click. It demanded precision from the driver, but when mastered, it created an intimate connection between man and machine. Pair that with the steering, direct and communicative, and the Urraco P300 delivered a driving experience that felt raw, analog, and alive, the kind of engagement modern cars often lack. Inside, the cockpit was pure Italian flair. Low-slung seating put you almost on the floor, your legs stretched out toward the pedals. The dashboard was a mix of leather, toggle switches, and clear instruments, surrounding the driver in a purposeful, racy environment. The rear seats were mostly symbolic, more for insurance categories and marketing than for passengers, but they reinforced the idea that this was a car you could at least pretend to use daily. Of course, like many Lamborghinis of the era, the Urraco wasn't without its quirks. Some owners reported electrical issues, occasional overheating, or gearbox wear. Build quality could vary from car to car, depending on how much care was given on the assembly line. These flaws gave the Urraco its reputation as a car for the brave, for enthusiasts willing to love it for its soul rather than its perfection.
But that's part of the charm. Behind the wheel of a Urraco P300, you weren't driving an appliance. You were piloting a hand-built Italian exotic, one of less than 200 ever made, with engineering that demanded respect and rewarded passion. The growl of the V8, the balance of the chassis, the rush of acceleration, it was all there, distilled into a package that was smaller and more accessible than Lamborghini's flagships, but no less emotional. The Urraco P300 wasn't just about numbers, it was about feel. It was about stepping into a car that combined futuristic Bertone design with a mechanical heartbeat that made every journey unforgettable. In the 1970s, it might not have been the most famous Lamborghini, but for those lucky enough to experience it, the P300 was proof that the brand's DNA wasn't confined to its V12 icons. It lived just as strongly in this mid-engine V8 coupe. When the Lamborghini Urraco P300 first rolled into showrooms in the mid-1970s, the world wasn't quite ready for it. The global oil crisis, economic turbulence, and Lamborghini's own production delays meant the car never reached the sales numbers Ferruccio Lamborghini had hoped for. In total, fewer than 800 Urracos of all versions were built, and only about 190 to 205 of those were the high-performance P300s. Compared to the thousands of Ferrari 308s and Porsche 911s produced in the same era, the Urraco was practically a unicorn. At the time, this limited production felt like a failure. Lamborghini had aimed to create a volume seller, a steady revenue stream that could support the company's more exotic projects. Instead, the Urraco became a rare sight, overshadowed by the Miura before it and the Countach after it. Many critics pointed out its flaws: inconsistent build quality, challenging maintenance, and a lack of the brute force personality people expected from Lamborghini.
But history has a funny way of rewriting reputations. Today, the Urraco P300 has emerged as a hidden treasure in the world of classic cars. Collectors see it as a bridge, a crucial link between Lamborghini's early V12 masterpieces and the later V8 models like the Silhouette and the Jalpa. It represents the moment Lamborghini dared to step into a new segment, offering a mid-engine sports car that was exotic yet a touch more approachable. And the market has noticed. Back in the early 2000s, you could find a Urraco for the price of a new family sedan. Those days are long gone. Today, a P300 in fair condition might start around $60,000, but pristine examples with matching numbers and full documentation can fetch over $120,000, sometimes even reaching into the $140,000 range at auction. Considering the rarity and the Bertone design pedigree, many enthusiasts argue the Urraco is still undervalued compared to its more famous siblings. For collectors, though, owning a Urraco P300 comes with responsibilities. These cars demand careful attention. Originality is everything. A car with its factory V8, original interior, and unmodified bodywork is far more valuable than one that's been altered over the years. Documentation is equally critical. Knowing where the car has been, how it's been maintained, and whether it's had proper restorations can make or break its value. There are also practical things to consider. Corrosion can be a silent killer in these cars, especially around suspension mounting points and the chassis structure. The cooling system needs to be in top condition to keep that high-revving V8 happy. And sourcing parts, while possible, requires dedication and sometimes a bit of patience. You're dealing with a car that was hand-built in small numbers almost 50 years ago. Yet for those who take the plunge, the rewards are immense. The P300 offers not just a piece of Lamborghini history, but also a driving experience that feels alive and raw in a way modern cars simply can't replicate. It's a conversation starter at every gathering, a car that makes even seasoned enthusiasts stop and say, "Wait, is that a Urraco?" And of course, no discussion of the Urraco P300 would be complete without a few curiosities. Did you know that the very first prototypes were shown in 1970 at the Tour and Motor Show, with one displayed at Bertone's stand and another at Lamborghini's, as if to underline the partnership that birthed the car? Or that some Urracos were delivered without the signature rear louver panels, creating what collectors now call the French wing look, a rare detail that makes those cars especially unique today. The Urraco's legacy also stretches beyond itself. The P300's V8 engine became the foundation for Lamborghini's later V8 models, the Silhouette and the Jalpa, both of which carried the spirit of the Urraco into the 1980s. In many ways, this car was the testbed that allowed Lamborghini to expand its lineup and experiment with new directions. So, how is the Urraco P300 remembered now? It's no longer seen as a commercial misstep. Instead, it's celebrated as one of Lamborghini's boldest experiments, a car that dared to step outside the shadow of the V12s and carve its own identity. For collectors and enthusiasts of vintage Italian cars, it represents something deeply personal, the joy of owning a machine that's rare, beautiful, and full of soul. In the end, the Lamborghini Urraco P300 is more than a classic car. It's a symbol of persistence, of ambition, and of design brilliance that refuse to fade away. And today, it stands proudly as one of the most intriguing chapters in the Lamborghini story, a reminder that sometimes the underdog becomes the legend. There's something unforgettable about standing in front of a classic car like the Lamborghini Urraco P300, a vintage Lamborghini that was once overlooked but now shines as a rare Italian sports car, full of history and soul. And that's exactly why we love diving into stories like this one, because every collector car has a tale that deserves to be told. If you enjoyed this journey into the world of classic cars, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and give this video a thumbs up so more enthusiasts can discover it. Share it with friends who live and breathe vintage Lamborghinis and Italian sports cars just like we do. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think about the Lamborghini Urraco P300? Does it deserve more recognition among collectors? And which classic car would you like to see featured in our next deep dive? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your ideas shape the future of this channel. Because here, it's never just about cars. It's about passion, history, and keeping the spirit of these timeless machines alive.